Hello guys, good morning. In this video, we will see how we can deploy our ASP.NET Core application on IIS. That's a on-premises deployment or the local IIS deployed on your machine. We'll talk about that. Of course, this application, which is ASP.NET Core app, will connect to the database and then it will perform some CRUD operations. So I already have the application which is ready with me, which uses ASP.NET Core 7.0, and then it also make a use of Microsoft Entity Framework Core to connect to the database server. So this is what the database that I do have, that is our company, and it has so many tables. I have used the database first approach to generate the context class with Entity Framework Core, and the connection string which we get it inside our on configuring method, right, of our context class, that I have taken it from here and I have added this into this app settings.json file, which is the best practice. Then furthermore, I have registered the DB context, in short our company context class, into the dependency injection container, and then further the controller is added. This is my department controller, and my company context is then injected with a constructor injection into this department controller. I also have use for performing the CRUD operations here for the department controller, and I'm going to run this application. So this is what the ASP.NET Core app that I have. So this is what the index for the department. I'm going to click on create here, and then I'm going to add some data here. Okay, and see here something like that. Okay, and then I say create. So this is creating, and then of course here the data is being shown into my table. So this is what do I have. Now the important thing is that I want to deploy this application on IIS. Now the question arises is that how are we going to do that? We have to keep one thing in mind, that ASP.NET Core is cross-platform. So we can host it on IIS, on Docker, right, and other platforms. We can do that. Now, typically when we see IIS here, this is what my IIS, right? And if I take you to this, this is my IIS version on Windows 11, right? So Internet Information Services version 10.0. This is what that I do have. Now, the thing is that here, when we know that like our traditional ASP.NET apps, which are targeted to .NET Framework, these applications can be directly deployed over there on IAS by creating the application pool. We create an application pool and then we select the .NET Framework version, which works in an integrated mode into an HTTP pipeline. And then we do have HTTP handler, HTTP modules. The typical objects which are used for request processing, right? They are already configured specific to IIS. They are already there. How can we find that? So if I go here to turn Windows on or off, or if in short, you go to Control Panel and Programs and Features, you can go there and then you can see that here the .NET is installed, and then if I take you to this IIS here, we do have the application development features, and then the .NET 3.5 and then ASP.NET 3.5 and ASP.NET 4.8 is already installed. So corresponding worker process of for ASP.NET is already there, that is targeted to .NET Framework. Okay. So this makes the deployment of ASP.NET targeted to .NET Framework, that is web forms, ASP.NET MVC targeted to .NET Framework, as well as Web API, ASP.NET Web API again targeted to .NET Framework. This deployment becomes much more easier for us, right? But here, .NET Core is cross-platform, and then how we are gonna deploy it. So what you need to do is that the first thing first, we need to have the ASP.NET Core hosting module that must be installed on our machine. So if I take you over here to Google and say that .NET 7 SDK download, right? If I do that here, we'll find that ASP.NET Core Runtime 7.0.12. This is there. We'll have to download this, and then we'll have to install it. So this is ASP.NET Core Runtime that enables you to run existing web server applications. On Windows, we recommend installing the hosting bundle, which includes .NET Runtime and IIS support. So this is our ASP.NET Core Module V2, which is supported supported the ASP.NET Core deployment on IIS. Okay, so we need to have that. Of course, when you install the SDK, when you download and install the SDK, we will have this available out there. But otherwise, the recommendation is that like we should download this based upon whatever the Windows architecture that you have, and then you can get this thing on your machine. And IIS will support it. Now the question arises over here is that how should we find out the deployment, or how should we go for the deployment? So the first thing first, what we will have to do is that we will have to create an application pool. So I'm going to go for add application pool. I'm going to give the name that as sample app pool, right here. And now I'm not going to select any .NET CLR version. Instead, I'm going to make it as no managed code, right? So this is going to make sure that I'm going to deploy the application, which is not working with a .NET or ASP.NET runtime integrated mode. I'm going to make this as okay. Yes, this is added. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to right click on the sites here. I'll say add website, right? So as like I do have, okay, various websites that I do have it. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to have add website here, and then I'm going to give the site name as I'll say that sample website, right? You know that like whenever we give the site name, the same app pool is created. So you make sure that carefully you select the application pool that has been created by you. So we have created sample app pool here. Okay, right. You the physical path. So this is the folder where our build files will be stored. And of course, we have web config file. Yes, it's a surprise, but yes, web.config file is needed because the the deployment on IIS, right, on a particular port, it will become a public endpoint on which the request will be accepted, right, from the outside world. And then that web.config file will navigate it to the .NET exe, because .NET exe is the one which is responsible to host or execute our ASP.NET Core app. So I'm now going to have the physical path here. So let me go to this here. I'm going to create a folder. I'll say that, okay, let me check my path again. Right. So, yeah. So I'm going to select this. I'll say that my deploy. This is what my folder is. Oops. Let me rename this. I just say here my deploy. Okay. Right. And then I'm going to give the port here. I'll say that port is 8040. You'll have to make sure that that's free. Right. I'm having HTTP, like can set the binding here, HTTP, HTTPS. I'm selecting HTTP here. Leave the host name blank. Okay. And here it's, I have to change this to 40. Right. Okay. Yes. So this is what is it. Right. So I have a sample website that is there. Now under this website, can create an application. So I'm going to right click on this, and then I'm going to say add application here. I'll say that sample app over here, and then I'll target to the physical path here. So again, I'm going to go to this. I'll say that my app deploy. Okay, right. I'm doing it. Fine. So this is what is generated. So here we have created the uh, IIS app pool, right, which is no manage. So technically, what is going to happen over here is that if at all I want to show this in a kind of a small diagrammatic form here, right? So our IIS, right? This is what our IIS is. Let's say here the web server, right? Of course, and what do we are having over here is that we are gonna have the app pool right here, right? Our app pool, okay, which is now having the website deploy on it. Okay, so the website, right, this is on port 8040, right? And now here I'm going to deploy my ASP.NET Core app. Now we know that ASP.NET Core application that gets executed into the .NET exe right here. Okay, so I'm going to have here the .NET.exe, right? Is there? So what we need to do is that like whatever that application DLL that we have, right? So my app DLL, whatever this DLL is, which is my ASP.NET application, which is to be executed over here inside it. So now from the public outside world, the request will be accepted over here. Now with this website, we are going to have ASP.NET Core module v2. Okay, right? What this is going to do is that it is going to redirect the request over here to .NET exe, and where my application.dll will be executed with whatever model view controller, data access, okay, all that will be executed over here, and then the response will be sent back. This is the response over here, right? So whatever the output response, it will be given back, and then from that here, right? So this is what it's going to have is the response, correct? So this is it. So here we are having the .NET exe, which is also going to have its execution on internal port, right? So uh, from that internal port, the request will be on that internal port, the request will be accepted and the response will be sent back here. And then the if the response will be sent back from 8040 back to the outside world over here. This is what is it. So this is again a very classic concept of the reverse proxy here, which has been discussed a lot with ASP.NET Core environment here, the reverse proxy, correct, where the response will be sent back. This is how the overall structurization for the deployment. Now I'm going to go back to my code here, and then let's say I'm going to uh, deploy this application. So let me stop it, and then I'm going to go for the release mode over here, and then let's say I'm going to build it. I'm going to create a build for that. Okay, so the build will be created over here, right? And then if I again take you to the folder structure here, so I'm going to have bin release here 7.0, correct. And then this is what that core exe, this is what my .NET exe, where my app DLL will be executed. So if I double click on this here, so it's available on port 5000 HTTP here, it's there, correct. So now if I go back and then over here, if I say HTTP colon slash slash localhost, okay, colon 5000, right, this is where it is. So nothing a bootstrap and all this, all those classic look is not coming here, but the app is executing here, and this is what has been displayed. So this is what my .NET exe, the internal port which has been given to us by ASP.NET Core, where the execution is going to take place. But now what we'll have to do is that we will have to map it, right? We will have to map this here with the port which we have registered for our ASP.NET Core app, right, which has been hosted into the sample website. So what we will be doing is that we will be actually seeing that deployment over there into the next video. Stay with me, guys. Thank you very much. Welcome back, guys. So in a previous video, in a part one of this, we have discussed the creation of the application pool, the website, and we have also seen why we are installing the ASP.NET Core hosting module, and we also talked about the concept of the reverse proxy here. Now, one thing that we need to do here for the application pool is that the change in the properties of the app pool, right? We'll have to do that. That is needed for the deployment. So my app pool is sample app pool, which we have created. I'm going to go to the advanced settings of that, and I'm going to change the identity that from application pool identity to the local system, right? So that the database connectivity, right, the network connectivity in short, to be successfully executed. So we'll have to do that. So I'm changing it. Then, thanks to Visual Studio here, Visual Studio directly provides us a publish feature for our application. So I can right click on project and then I'm going to select publish here. Right. So we have a lot many options here like Azure, Docker Container Registry, folder, FTP, IIS, like that. So if at all you want to deploy it on Azure, you can directly select Azure, or we can also have it as a Docker container image, or we can have it in a local folder also. But currently we are selecting the web server, so I'm selecting the IIS. Next, I'm going to select web deploy. Here, the server name. So I'm going to have the server name as localhost. The site name. So whatever the site name that we have created and the application in that, we will be selecting it. So I'm going to take you back to IIS, my sample website and the sample app. This is what that we have. So I'll say here sample website slash, make sure that you give the proper name, sample website, and then here sample app. So I'll say here sample app, and then validate the connection. Make sure that the connection is validated. So this will make sure that you do have the access to the IIS. I'm finishing this. Right. So this is going to create a profile here, and now we need to edit it. Why we need to edit it? Because there we need to select the framework, the .NET framework, sorry, the .NET Core version or the .NET version, right, which is been used for the deployment, as well as the connection string to the database, everything that we'll have to do it. So now here, I'm going to go back. Let's say my mistake, I started publish. I'll cancel it here. I'll select edit here. Right. So I'm going to use the release mode. The target is .NET 7. I'm going to have the framework dependent. Right. And then the target runtime is portable so that I can use it on Windows right here. So I've selected that. These are also called as a runtime identifiers where we can specify to the target OS. But I'm selecting it portable. The database connection string here, that is what my connection string, which I have shown you in an app settings.json. And then there is no entity framework migration that's needed, but I'm not keeping it here. Check, save it. Right. And once it is saved, now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to publish this. So let me click on publish. The publish will start right here, and then it will show you all the published details. Right. So it's in the release mode. Right. So all the published settings, those exist here. It says the publish is successful. Right. And now when I go back to this here, right, into the output window, we do have that the detail log here, right, in an output window. The list of assemblies or the DLLs, those are taken into consideration. The jQuery, the bootstrap, right, all these are here, right, has been taken. Okay, so now let me go back to this and refresh it. So we have here the deployment, right, www root folder here. We have JS, lib, CSS, all that. Runtimes, those exist here. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the explore window for that. So let me go to the explore. This is what is the folder where the deployment has taken place. Right. So we do have here exe, right, .NET exe, and then we also have the web config file. This is what is it. Now, as we know that with the ASP.NET Core ecosystem, there is no web config file available for our project, and we used to have it earlier with ASP.NET Framework, the web forms, the web MVC, and web API. But now it's not there. But still, since we have deployed it on IIS, we have this web config file. So let me open it into the notepad. So I'll say notepad here. And let me drag drop it. So this is it. Where now we do have the server configuration here. So handler in a server configuration says ASP.NET Core, right? And then here it has the module, that is ASP.NET Core module V2, the one about which we discussed in a previous video here. Okay, so that is the one which is actually going to redirect the request to the .NET exe. So what this does is that, so we have ASP.NET Core here, process path is .NET, and the exe where our DLL will be loaded, and the in-process execution is called explicit. So this is what has been managed by the web config file right over the IIS. Correct. Right. Now what I'm going to do is that over here, the app is there on the IIS with all the necessary dependencies are there, entity framework core and all that is there with us. So now I'm gonna say browse here. Okay, sample app, and here it is. My app is deployed. Yes, congratulations, app is deployed. I have home, I have privacy, and then I go to the department over here, and then I am getting an error. What is the error? It says that. So it says that in an error occurred while processing the request here, and development mode. So app in development environment will display move detail environment. So why this error is coming here? So the reason behind this error over here is that like the connectivity with the database. So what's happening is that when we are deploying the application on IIS, although it is a .NET Core app, the connectivity is being done right from the from the IIS to the SQL server to our database. The IIS becomes a user of the database. So the database has to impersonate, or database has to understand that yes, this is what the pool is from where the request is coming. Then only IIS, then only the database is gonna entertain that request. So that's what that error is over here. Okay. So if I go back over here again, it says that like swapping the to development mode environment will display the more detailed information over here. So let me go back and I'm going to go back to the project here, to the program.cs, and then probably what I'm going to do is that right here, I'm having this error, right, which has been displayed. And if not development, that is the production over here, right? This is what is it. Okay, so that's why this error is coming. Right, so what I need to do is that I need to make sure that the connectivity from the web server to the IIS, connection from the IIS web server to the database to work. So what I'm going to do is that for that purpose, I'll go to the IIS back here. This is what my app pool is, sample app pool. I'm going to take that and I'm going to register this sample app pool as a user, IIS user on my database. So I'm going to go to the database here, security, logins. Okay, and there I'm gonna add my app pool. So I'm gonna right click on logins, new login. I'll say IIS space app pool slash right, and the name of app pool. What is that? It is the sample app pool. So I'll say here app sample app pool, right? Server role is public, right? I'm gonna give the access of my database our company here. Okay, right, I'm doing that. Okay, yes. So IIS app pool. So here it gives me some error. So let me go back. IIS app pool. So here SAMPLO spelling here, right? Okay, server roles is public, user mapping to company, and okay, yes, it's there. the user is added. Now, I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to go to the properties of this, and then I'll say that the access to the database. I'm going to grant the permissions so that the request for read and write, and in short, the current operation create, read, update, delete, those operations will be entertained. It will be enabled. Okay, so that's what that we are supposed to configure over here. Of course, based upon your requirement, you can basically keep on granting the necessary access rights to the user. So here I'm doing it all in a real scenario. You will have to work on this very carefully. So connect to the DBA or connect to this necessary role with the database and then check that what type of access right a particular user should have. So I'm going to say okay. Now, if I take you to the our company here, and then if I say security users, you'll see that okay, the pool is added, sample app pool is there. Okay, well, so now let's refresh this. Okay, refresh, and then I'm gonna browse it. Well, so here, department, and then yes, we have the database that has been accessible. Right. So the what is the most important step? Most important step over here is that managing the connection between the IIS web server and the SQL Server database. Managing that. This is very important. This is important for on-premises IIS deployment only. If you are doing this on a cloud for Azure SQL, there is a different mechanism altogether available, right? Which we'll be talking about it in future. But this is what is important because as of today also, there are several institutions, those who are having their application running on premises, ASP.NET Core application running on premises. They have their local environment, local server, IIS, and then connecting to the database. So that's how this video is going to help you into that. So creation of the application pool, making the application pool as local system, configuring, creating the website, configuring the port for that, and then publishing your application on it. And then finally registering the app pool inside the security of the database. These are the important steps. Once it is done, your app is ready here. So I'll say localhost here. What is that? 8040, whatever it is. What's that? Let me check it. Right, 8040. Or here I will be able to access it here. So that's what it is. Right, guys? So this is how you are able to deploy your application on IIS. Thank you very much, guys. Thanks a lot.